Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. It was a mega weekend in terms of motorsport all around the world. We're going to focus on two key places, and that is Monte Carlo and Indianapolis, where our reporter is live on the ground from Indianapolis. So we expect a full report on that. But we are going to kick off with a full lineup of Monte Carlo. We've got F1, F2, F3, and Porsche Super Cup as well. So let's kick straight off with Formula One, and it was another Max masterclass and a shocker for Perez.
We were watching the qualifying in the bar here in America, and I don't think it's ever been as an exciting quali at Monaco. And you always assume that by the end of the weekend, don't you, that it's just a quali and then it's all over. But we'll talk about the race later. But I mean, the way the pole position jumped around in those last few minutes was very exciting. We had a bar full of people genuinely, excited. And when Max did that amazing last sector, because after two sectors, it looked like he wasn't going to get it.
Well, the like Fernando was going to get it, which is just a dream for everybody, really, for motorsport fans all over the world.
But that last bit that Max did through the swimming pool, just glazing barriers. And I think when he went to the pole in the bar, there was a huge noise, half for cheering and half for sort of moaning and groaning with the fact that he put Alonso off pole. So we pretty much still. I hope Alonso might outdrag him. That was the only dream we now had. But I understand it was a big sort of tire thing. Obviously, I haven't caught up with the race apart from watching bits and bobs. But Alonso he started on the hards, which meant he would never outdrag Max on the mediums or something.
To the first corner, of course. It's all about that first corner in Monte Carlo. But I think it was. I think the tire strategy. It seemed like Aston Martin got it right until the rain came, which then, of course, was chaos. We'll come on to that in a moment. But I look, Max and Red Bull are in a class of their own, and he showed that this weekend. Yesterday,
yeah. But it looked like being a dull old Grand Prix though for the first 50 laps. I mean, it was just no one overtook anybody. I think off the line, they'd all ran around in their qualifying positions, didn't they?
Yeah, well, there was a little bit of overtaking, not much at all. Typical sort of Monaco, and it was a little bit dull. Then the heavens opened, and it was just utter chaos. Interestingly, it just didn't seem like there were many retirees. There was only a couple of retirees towards the end, but overall, when it started raining, I thought, great, there's bound to be a safety car. Max is going to slow down a little bit, protect his lead. He's not going to risk anything. But it was the opposite. He just extended his lead. He was so good in the wet.
But then I got confused that Fernando stopped. And then he put on the medium tyres for one lap. And they're all saying if he hadn't have done that mistake, he would have won the race.
Well, they're saying that was his only chance, really, of winning the race. But he said, his statement was, for me, it was very clear that the track on that lap when we stopped was completely dry, apart from turns 7 and 8. So as far as he was concerned and Aston Martin were concerned, they made the right call at that point. But come on, Aston Martin, you've got to look at your radar and what everybody else is doing as well. Although he was one of the first.
Others had already stopped and put on the intermediates. I mean, the writing was on the wall. But he did one lap. He did one lap and came back in again, didn't he?
What a shame, because that really was his opportunity to push Max, because then it would have been a different story, because Max doesn't like it when people get up amongst him. He really doesn't. He likes being in the front. He likes being a front runner. But as soon as he's in that race, unless he's got all the power that he can get past on DRS, which he wouldn't have had, of course, I think that would have been a masterclass from Alonso against Max. But Max just proved that he is a worthy world champion.
Still got that bit extra. In fact, the main headline seems to me to have been that it's going to cost, something's costing Jeremy Clarkson an awful amount of Hawkstone beer or whatever it's called.
Why? What was that? I didn't even see that.
Haven't you got that story? Oh, I read that on Twitter. Apparently, through the race, he said, "Come on, Alpine. If you get on the podium, I'll buy you all a pint of bitter." And so Ocon with this amazing, probably the biggest story was Ocon really finishing third. But even bigger story was the fact it's now costing Clarkson vast amounts of his Hawkstone, but it probably is giving him more publicity for his beer than it has cost him in giving it to the fact. But the Endstone is the nearest factory to his house, so he's claiming that's his local team.
Yeah, but why does he support one of the British teams or something? I don't
know. Just because it's the nearest to his house at Endstone. So but Ocon and the Alpine, Gasly was about 7th as well, so they had a very good race. Ferrari
amazing
again.
race.
What Ferrari all stopped too soon or too late? Didn't they? Stayed out the slicks for too long.
Yeah, but they were never in the race, Tiff. They were never in it. Ferrari, even in qualifying, it's just they were never in the races. They never turned up, which is a shame for Charles because he's of course got pole position. The last 2 years running, he's hoping to get an elusive hat trick, which he failed miserably on. And him and Carlos just weren't really in it. They weren't in it. Carlos had a.
But once again, Mercedes made a good race out of a bad qualifying. Those two seemed to race well. Good strategy always from the team. And Russell was running third or something, but he
but that's all because of tire pit stops and stuff. So and then he overshot a corner. He came back on, and everybody's saying, "Oh, that's a dangerous." Well, it was dangerous. He got a 5-second penalty for it, but he went into Sainz coming out. But you can't, what
it was Perez, wasn't he? Clobbered Perez, didn't he?
It was Perez, I beg your pardon. Yeah, it was Perez. Thank you. You didn't even see the race, you knew that. But you can't see with your hands on, your hands device. You can only and they're all cocooned in, so it's a bit of pot luck. But it was
rejoined. Talking of Perez, of course, I think we all had a bit of a chuckle when he went. Sorry, Perez lovers, but after he deliberately, and I say that with no doubt in my mind, spun the car to keep pole position or stay ahead of Max the last year, which won him the Grand Prix. I think it was a bit of ironic chuckles as he put himself in the wall and out of favour with Red Bull. That's for sure. Probably ended his only he thought he could win the World Championship, but I think even he must now realise he's going to be number 2 to Max where he should be.
Well, for our regular listeners and viewers, you'll know that I'm a massive Perez fan because he was the only person that could have beat Max Verstappen, because I don't want Max to get a 3rd title. I do want him to get a 3rd title, but the 1st title he shouldn't have got. We're not going to go there, but he shouldn't have got the 1st title. But Max, absolute class. Perez had a shocker. He had a shocker in qualifying. And then in the race, he just did nothing at all. He just
hit things. He got hit by George.
He seemed to get hit every corner, every lap. He seemed to be in a different incident.
But he got lapped twice. I read by the end of the race, he was lapped twice.
How embarrassing! How embarrassing! He got lapped twice by his own driver.
Was it good entertainment? The race, would you say? I mean, it looked at the highlights. I've just seen people slithering off all over the place. And did the rain? We've always dreamed of rain at Monaco. Did it really make the race come alive, or did it become a survival of the fittest?
It was survival of the fittest, but it did come alive. It was seeing these 5-meter long, unbelievably fast cars tiptoeing down the Fairmont hairpin at 15 miles an hour, and it was incredible, really, because that's when they're on slicks. Because a lot of them had to do a good lap, almost a full lap on slicks, because it just seemed to happen all of a sudden. And they were at that stage where, like Alonso said, it was only turn 7 and 8. It only came in at the far end. But I think it was a really exciting Monaco race. Definitely,
that's what I wanted to hear. That's what we want.
Yeah, but it was made by the qualifying, which, as you quite rightly said, was one of the best qualifying of all time. The glitz and the glamour of Monaco, I absolutely love it. They should have this on the calendar. Forget proper out-and-out racing. Have this on the calendar forever, because they all want to win this race. It's the race that they all want to win.
I don't mind it. People say, well, we shouldn't have the Monaco Grand Prix because I think it's a spectacle, and the qualifying is a great test of drivers' talents.
Yeah, and then we all understand that when it is the race, you probably the lead car typically will win it. But it was exciting, a very exciting race, as was Formula 2 around Monte Carlo as well, I have to say.
Yeah.
Did you
mixed results for the British boys in the support events? Ollie Behrman, our only F2 boy, first time at Monaco, I think, and he crashed in one of the practice sessions, and he finished about 12th in the race, didn't he? 11th, Ollie Behrman, but all good racing. Who was it won by? I forget now. Vesti, his teammate, won it.
Vesti smashed it. Even after the safety car and the whole pack came back, Vesti absolutely smashed it. He was sensational.
There was a lot of smashing going on, I think, especially in the stupid reverse grid races. There was more yellows and red flags and stuff going on. But the Formula 3 boys really did better. So I looked at it because it was the Italian Gabriele Mini won it, but it was Brits. Luke Brownie was 4th, Zach O'Sullivan 7th, and Taylor Barnard 8th. So we had 3 Brits in the top 10 in the F3.
But we topped that at Monte Carlo with a British winner in Porsche Super Cup. And it was bloody brilliant. It was so good watching those cars go around. Harry, of course, who you're with.
He qualified second. How did he get the lead? Do you know? Did he get it off the line?
I watched the race. I watched so much racing this weekend. I can't even remember how he got the lead. Oh, he got the lead off the start. He Yeah, he got the lead going into the first corner. The second place driver, the Dutch lad, it almost like he anti-stall came in, and when you dip the clutch again to get away, so almost like he had a. So yeah, he got the lead, and then he.
But we've been all last year on our podcast. Every Monday was saying, "Oh Harry, you had that one, and you had a bad start. Oh Harry again." So finally, this year he's been winning the sort of Austrian Championship races already, and he's been winning the Bahrain. So and of course, I love him because he's a Thrapston racing instructor. So when I'm doing my days, he doesn't turn up much anymore. To be honest, I think Harry's getting a bit above us. But he's a lovely lad. I mean, I see him in a Le Mans Porsche in 5 or 6 years' time, winning a Le Mans. I think Harry King's got a great career. It's been lovely following him.
Yeah, great. I don't know whether you saw it, but the race actually. So he really did so well. It was between him and the Dutch lad the whole way round. And then there was a safety car with about 3-4 laps to go. So it finished under safety car. But I don't suppose the commentators saying, he wouldn't want to win Monaco like this. Rubbish. He would have been delighted any way to win Monte Carlo. So good for him. Well done, Harry King. So it was all happening in Monaco. But we want to hear live from our reporter in the USFA, Indianapolis. Tiff Needell, take it away. I'm finally
here. I've finally got it. Ever since Jim Clark won in 1966, I think it was. I've always loved Indy. As you know, we talk about IndyCar from the other races, how we love the fact that any of 20 drivers could win races. The Formula One snobs don't like the fact that they're all in the same car. But the thing is, they don't understand that engineering, even if you've got the same car, is absolutely critical. You still need brilliant engineers to get that extra bit.
In fact,
a huge example was sadly the team that we have to thank Graham Rahal for inviting us here. And my son Harry's with us and gave us the hospitality, got all the seats organised, and we were walking on the grid. We were walking on amazing. But
did you get recognised at all?
Cars. Sorry.
Did you get recognised at all?
Oh yeah, there were a few. Yeah, hi buddy, how you doing here? But his team of 4 cars were amongst the 4 slowest. All through qualifying. And, I had dinner with him before the race and obviously was embarrassed by the whole thing.
So do you go back a long way, you guys? Or how, I mean...
Yeah, well, I raced with Bobby Rahal's dad, so we know the family Rahal. So I raced against Bobby. But they've got their amazing base here in Indianapolis, just outside. We took a tour around his base, where he runs his 4 Indy cars. They run the 2 BMW LMP1s, whatever they call them over here, GTP1s, whatever. And so it's amazing facilities. So there's a company that is down. Of course, it's Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. And we went to the party the night before the race, and he had David Letterman, of course, the famous TV host, who was a very entertaining speaker, and huge party, all the employees and friends and inside their workshop. But his 4 cars.
What did you wear? Did you get tuxedoed up or not?
Sorry?
Did you get tuxedoed up?
No, not tux, no. It's all casual in America. They don't go mad in America. It was huge. But of course, his 4 car, he didn't qualify. Graham, the boss, if you saw that, we talked about this a week ago, didn't we? The drama of qualifying. And I spoke to him about, why you've got 4 cars with 4 in, how can you be 3 miles an hour slower? And he said they believe it's in drag, that there's new tricks. Apparently people coat their gearboxes and differentials in stuff 12 months ago and let it cure. And then by the time they come to Indy, there's just reducing friction in every part of the car. So although we always think of, slow in a straight line is just down to how much wing you're using, there's so much more to it when they start getting into, of course, all the brake pads are held away from the discs. They've got special springs instead of, whereas all normal cars, you've got your pads just about touching the discs.
Why? For brake lock-off? Why do they do that?
Less friction. So everything, you mustn't, wow. so the pad would never touch the disc in the flat-out qualifying.
Does that mean you have more carry with your brake pedal?
Yeah, you've got to be very careful because when you're coming in at 220 miles an hour, having not used the brakes at all for 23 minutes, you've got to start touching them and taking the play out and getting some heat into the brakes. So, but yeah, they were frustrated. Of course, Graham didn't qualify. Then we had this bizarre scene where Catherine Legg, who had qualified one of his cars, crashed into poor Justin Wilson. Justin. I'm getting names wrong straight away, and put him out. He fractured his back. So then Graham Rahal got to drive his car in the race. But none of it went. My poor Graham, the car wouldn't start. When they released the field, he was left sitting there. And I'm already feeling so sorry for my host because he's had a bad qualifying. And then they eventually pushed him into the pit lane, and he started 2 laps down and drove round and round. And Catherine, of course, had this awful. We've met her at the party. They're all there. Jack Harvey and Catherine Legg. So I got a chat with her, and she'd been had a really bad time. The incident with Wilson, she's been getting hate mail. We're talking about this trolling of women. She's had death threats, and a woman shouldn't be driving to Indianapolis. Ever since you shouldn't be there. So of course she had all that pressure on. The fact that she'd injured Wilson, which of course she felt terribly guilty about. And then in the race, she'd done the car broke down on the Friday with the carburetor days. They'd had some problems, so she never ran pit stop testing. And their team was sort of put together a 4th team, an extra car for Rahals. So she'd done no pit stop practices. And when she came for her first stop, got to the stop all right. When they have to spin the wheels up to get some heat in the rear tyres, she just got a bit of a tank slapper on and kissed the flipping wall, accelerating away from her pit box. And she kept going in and out again. I think they tried.
But the thing is, it can happen to anyone, especially a rookie or someone not.
Well, funny enough, it happened to Rinus VeeKay because we had this amazing race out front where Alex Palau and Rinus VeeKay did most of the leading. So they were the 2 at the head of this pack. And for an hour or so, the first half of the race, there were no yellows. It was all calm. And that, if you watch, you think, oh, this is boring. I say boring. The lead is changing every 5 laps, when one goes past the other. And they come streaming past you at 230 miles an hour. But VeeKay, when they all came in under the first caution, of course, lane 3 has got cars going past, and he came sliding, spun the wheels, came out to the middle lane of 3. And I don't know whether the radio was saying, careful, someone's on your right, and he sort of tried to, but anyway, he lost it, got sideways, and then Palou, the other leader, was leaving his pit box, and he took him into the wall. So Rinus did exactly what Catherine did, got slightly out of control when they're spinning up the wheels.
Did you have to wear ear defenders when you're there to hear them go past?
No, it wasn't too loud. We were up in some suites that Mr. Rahal had organised for us, so we were up on the top of the sort of halfway, well, almost 3/4 of the way down the straight on the inside, but we could look over the back of the exit.
Which corner?
1.
So coming into turn 1.
Into turn 1. So we're on the start finish. We watched all the build up and the parades and the bands and the prayers. And
I saw your tweet.
And the jets going over and the gentleman's star. I will be boring my Instagram people with these brilliant home movies I've been making. I shall be getting home and sending them out. But
any other ex-drivers or people that you knew in the?
I bumped into Lee Diffie. I know the commentator, the commentator out there. So I had a good chat with him. Frank Kitty was there and a few others, but I didn't really meet many people I knew that well.
Yeah.
But the whole spectacle of Harry and I, we just.
How did Harry? Did he enjoy it? Because he's a massive motorsport fan.
He's a huge fan, so Harry loved it. And, But when you're looking across at that main straight grandstand packed, you look up the main straight and you see the exit of turn 3 grandstand packed, and the roar when drivers were introduced and the hooting and following.
300,000 people.
I know, 300,000 people.
I saw so many tweets over the weekend saying, "Oh, I don't know what all the fuss is about. The Indianapolis, 300,000 people. Half the Grand Prix around the world get 300,000 people." Well, yeah, but they get 300,000 people over the entire 3 days.
Drives me mad that they have the same 100,000 people counted 3 times. But the whole spectrum, the first time they came down that strength, I'd never seen a car go, and they just stunning. And some of the overtakes, we watched them going into turn 1, 3 wide on a restart. Santino Ferrucci, who came 3rd, he was one of the bravest boys on the outside. Not a popular man to some motorsport lovers, but you have to forgive and forget, I think, at sometimes in life. And he's a very impressive racing driver. Not so much a human being, perhaps, but he was one of the stars. He was running 3rd early on. And so we ended up with this amazing battle between Marcus Ericsson and Joseph Newgarden at the end. We had these 3 red flags.
We had the one I saw. The one I saw was just unbelievable. Huge. The crash. Can you explain it? Because could you see it or not from where you were?
Yeah. No, we saw on the screen. Saw just the beginning of the flip going on.
Unbelievable.
Who was that upside down, Harry? I always forget names.
Carl Kirkwood.
Yeah, Carl Kirkwood, of course, was the one that was going along backwards at 200 miles an hour, upside down, opening his visor. Have you seen that replay?
Do you know that you can see the fear in his eyes when he did? There is absolute fear in his eyes on that shot. They got an in-car shot for those who haven't seen it, looking back at him, and he opened his visor as well, as you said, which is quite odd. And you could just see the fear in his eyes because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if he's going to burst into flames. Someone else is going to.
More fearful was a wheel cleared the fence, landed in the car park
with all those 300,000 people there, and it luckily. The whole wheel and tyre came off the car. It went over the fence into the car park. Luckily, it wasn't into the stands. And it hit a very nice lady. I saw her being interviewed.
She's the hero this morning. She's on the local press. She's
brilliant. Her car was called, I can't remember her name, sorry, but her car was called Snowball. So
was it?
Yeah.
Snowball got... But yeah, so that would have been it. But anyway, so then we had a red flag for that. And then we had another crash on the start. But then a restart. They crashed again. If it was that restart, after the second reflags, when Ferrucci went from like 5th to 2nd, it was actually challenging for the lead. We went side by side with Ericsson to try and take it. Might have been Newgarden. I forget who was leading at that stage.
So I am an Indy virgin, really. So I've only started being interested since you got me into it. But when it was the red flag, so Callum Ilott was first on the leaderboard. But he wasn't first.
No, he had to pit. Well, he had to pit for fuel because he was running on a fuel strategy. There was a group that didn't pit on the first red or first pace car. I've lost it as well. But yes, so Callum, he was then he was quickly overtaken in the next sort of running before the next red flags. But of course, the final red flag we had a bit of Abu Dhabi controversy because. And certainly Marcus Ericsson's complaining now because they ended up with only 2 laps left when they had to red flag the last crash. And of course, the whole tradition is you got an out lap and then you have a pace car lap and then you have a release lap. So you would be released after 2 laps of getting your car back up to temperature. Yeah, they're not allowed to change tires like Formula One. They can't do anything to the cars. They just come into the pit lane and stop.
That's the way it bloody should be in Formula One. It should be parc fermé type conditions.
So anyway, for the first time ever, I think, they did an out of the pits and then start. Now, it was the same for everyone, of course. And Marcus actually did an amazing restart and left Newgarden about 3 car lengths behind. And Ferrucci was the same distance back. So he actually spaced the field coming down past us to begin that final lap. But Newgarden just got a good run out of turns 1 and 2. And a lot of Ericsson was then off the track on the inside trying to weave the toe. But Newgarden got him, and the roar from the crowd, as he went past 3 millionths of a second ahead, and then he did that slowing down lap and parked across the line and leapt out of his car, heading for the spectators. We were expecting him to do the Castro Neves climb the fence, but instead he went under the fence into the crowd and the roar and it was just.
Is he a local lad? Is he from that area or not?
Sorry.
Is he from that area? I know he's an all-time American.
Newgarden's hometown. No, my backup doesn't know the hometown. But the tension, the whole race. Of course, when you have a yellow, you go back to you have a beer and have a break, and a normal caution is time to have a little breather.
Nashville, Tennessee.
But it was just we're just absolutely blown away. I don't know what else happened. So it was. So
what happened to Callum Ilott? Where did he end up? Nashville, Tennessee.
He ended up 12th. So the Brits, Jack, who qualified at the back, he was almost at the back, I think, in 18th, one of the last to run. Catherine Legge, of course, went out. Other pit stops, the other things. On Pato Award, in fact, although Ericsson complained about the only the 2 laps, the 1 lap race to the line, he had rather squeezed Pato Award into the wall. And those two, of course, were vying for the lead a year ago. And Award gave Ericsson space, he says, and so Ericsson got the win. But Award got a good start on the first red flag restart and came inside Ericsson into turn 3, and Ericsson just pinched him down to the grass, and Award had to come out of it and spun into the wall, which caused another red flag. So
how long was the race from start to finish with all the red flags?
I don't know what the time was. It was probably about 2.5 hours, I think, maybe getting for 3. But the first half of the race was a record-breaking speed because there was no yellows and no cautions. But the pit stops, because you can see the pits so clearly, from both sides. We were behind the pits, and the outsiders can see as well. And you have one man on each wheel, and it just looks so good. You can see. I know you're obsessed with 2 seconds.
No, I'm
It was taking about 8 seconds. 8 seconds. It was not, a huge amount of time. 8 seconds. Only 4 people, one guy on each wheel with a gun, changing his wheel. And they're just great to watch because you can actually see wheels being changed instead of this 20 people. And a Formula One car, you can't see the car because there's about 20 people all around
but
it.
It's brilliant in both ways, isn't it? In both senses, because it's the engineering of Formula One is the elite of the elite in motor racing, and the fact that they can change all 4 wheels and tires in less than 2 seconds is just mind blowing. And I think it should stay like that. But I love the fact that Indy do it proper, raw, jumping over,
doing it in 8 seconds. 8 seconds.
Yeah, fantastic.
But we were blown away completely. The whole build up and the whole affair was absolutely magical. And the racing
highlight of the trip.
Highlight of the trip. I don't know what highlight. I think just
Cracker Barrel. Did you go to?
No.
For those who don't know, Cracker Barrel's where Tiff always insists on going for breakfast when he's in America.
And the highlight was probably just the first 3 laps. It's the first time to see 33 cars just going. And some of the groups and them, it was just constant racing, constant. You just occasionally in the middle of the pack, especially coming down the start-finish straight, you'd pick out 2 that were about to do an overtake, and they come side by side into turn 1 before one slightly decides, I better drop out of this because otherwise we're both going to crash.
So you can watch next year VIP or just normal or whatever. You can go to one of the Triple Crown events. So you can go to Le Mans, back to Indy 500, or Monaco for the Grand Prix. What are you going to go watch?
Indy.
Yeah.
If you haven't been to Indy, Le Mans was a wonderful week, for the beer drinking, the camping, and the fabulous 24-hour race. Monaco's one for the rich hoi polloi and standing on a boat drinking champagne and occasionally seeing the top of a crash helmet go by, not even watching the race, most of the people in Monaco. Apart from the people at Grandstand Monaco for the real enthusiasts.
There was a lot of talk, Monaco, about the Indy 500, actually, more than it seemed in recent times. Probably McLaren were a little bit testament to that because they had a livery, of course, with the Triple Crown.
Yeah, they looked really strong, McLaren, which was Pato O'Ward was the lead McLaren that was taken out.
Did they have that same Triple Crown livery on the Indy car? I didn't notice, actually.
Well, they had 3 cars. No, because they had a car each.
Right.
So this I didn't like those colours in Monaco of the Formula One cars. But the great thing at Indy, they've got 3 entries. So Pato O'Ward was in the black car, and Rossi was in the the all orange car, and Rosenqvist was in the sort of slightly Marlboro colour, but it was like a Marlboro colour scheme with orange instead of red. So they were able to have the 3 different colour schemes, which actually worked out. Rosenqvist was another front-running driver before he got someone went by him and sort of chopped down to it. He got a bit of wash on his front nose, and just once they go up into the grey, they're backing out of it. They got no steering, and he just hissed the wall. Of course, he called the cause the terrible Kirkwood shunt. He was the one that. And they always tried to stay up in the wall. He said afterwards he was trying to hold it against the wall, but then something broke and it just turned him. He was lucky. He went right down across the track.
Oh, he was lucky.
But then he came back up, just came back onto the track a little bit, and Kirkwood just caught his rear wheel on. I love
the American commentary. They interviewed Zach Brown, and afterwards they said, and it's the Monte Carlo Formula One this weekend, and Zach's chosen to be here, the premier sporting event of the year, and so Zach Brown from McLaren was there as well.
It's just a shame it clashes with Monaco, really, because everyone could come over and watch. But
it is a different. You're right. It is a different. It's for the proper racing diehard fans. I think more. You're right about Monaco, because if you go there once, it's quite nice. If you go there on someone else's budget, fantastic. Yeah. But it's a bit poncy, really.
If you're a British fan, right, a British fan of those 3 races, okay, never been to any of them, my suggestion would actually be to go to Le Mans first. If you're a real race fan, to see Le Mans and have that amazing week's experience, and then Indianapolis second, and I'd leave Monaco third on a bucket list for people that haven't been to.
Why don't you get Steve from Motor Passion to do a Indianapolis 500 trip next year?
I've been trying to get him to do it for about 20 years. In fact, I think my expenses for this trip is because I'm researching for Motor Passion a trip to Indy. But it's quite comfy. You get on the buses. The organisation is amazing. 5 of the mechanics leave Indianapolis hotels at 4:30 a.m. So their buses go at 5.
And then the sort of team.
Sorry.
What time's the race?
12:45.
Okay.
but they're pushing the cars out to the grid at 10 o'clock. You know,
Right.
we had a lot of people had pit passes. Not just I was with Rahal team, but there were 1,000, 2,000, well, 1,000 people maybe. They just walk up and down the pit lane. The cars are pushed into the pit lane, and you can walk up and down, look at them. As you saw my photograph on Twitter, you know, I'm there, pole man's car. Then about an hour before the race, they push them out of the grid, and you can walk on the grid up and down, taking photos, soaking up this amazing atmosphere. So that's you've got to buy the right pass, and it's probably quite expensive.
Or get an invite from.
That's sort of the people on the Monaco yacht sort of cost, as opposed to the people in the grandstand. But
there was some other racing
awesome.
going on, but I just wanted to hear all about Indy. I'll be honest with you, I'm quite fascinated by it. There was DTM racing. Nothing too much going on there. I like those cars, but Engel and Rast had a bit of a argy-bargy. British GT. Do you know anything about British GT?
Yeah, win for Mercedes from James Cottingham and Johnny Adam in Aston were third. I was checking that because I was always follow the Bar World teams. So I always check British GT. They didn't have such a good Lamborghinis. They had a bit of problems. Don't know where they finished.
Donington Park was it?
Darren was second. Donington, yeah. Mercedes third, Aston Martin fourth, and a BMW fifth. We mentioned Jake Hill having a drive this weekend in a BMW, but I've looked at the results and I can't see his name anywhere, so maybe that didn't happen. So I didn't think there was actually much more going on around the world, but I think having Monaco and Indy to talk about is quite enough for any motorsport fan.
It is indeed, and you probably got to go to Cracker Barrel. What's going on next week? What have we got coming up? I've got a big coming up, which is Caterham at Zandvoort. They're going to Zandvoort. Lucky.
Well, that is the international race of the weekend. Then Caterham's at Zandvoort. They mentioned slipstreaming around there. There'll be into big chaos. There'll be chaos. No, Formula One, of course, goes to Barcelona. Both Formula One and IndyCar don't have a week off. Formula 1 and 2 and 3 at Barcelona. IndyCar go to this new track, the new Detroit street circuits. They're going from the fastest oval in the world to a brand new street circuit in a completely different environment. Perhaps maybe back in Britain, the biggest event is the Isle of Man TT. I mean, I've been there once. That's another. Now you can compare that, I think, to Le Mans, Monaco, and Indianapolis as an event on your bucket list to go to witness.
I need to go and witness that, but I just don't want to see anybody crash. It's just, what do they get? Average of 3 deaths a year?
Don't go to the high-speed bits. So there's plenty of slow money. Nothing's really slow when you go through a little tiny village at 150, 40 miles an hour. I've been there once, and I'd like to go again. But it is, you've got to get to a good position. And then, of course, BTCC at Thruxton, which is one of the best touring car weekends out. So I might be there myself this weekend if I get home and lie down for a week. And get
Harry going to go with you?
Harry be down hopefully at Thruxton, but who knows? But I mean, of course, I mean the thing about BTCC, they almost shoot themselves in the foot because the television coverage is so good. You get every race almost the whole weekend.
You're right.
So, but then there's, as I say, Formula One. So another very, very busy weekend next weekend. I'm
trying to look at, because it's just the most crazy statistic in the whole of motor racing. I'm trying to look at the average top speed, the highest speed average for the Isle of Man TT race, because it is just crazy.
Isn't it 130 I've got in my head?
I can't. I'm not fast enough on.
I don't know why I've got that number in my head.
But for those of you who don't know, most people know what the Isle of Man TT is, but it is literally country roads and through towns and villages, and it's and the curbs are normal curbs that we get on British roads. So you hit a curb, and I'm sorry, you're here you go. So the Peter Hickman, 135.452 miles per hour
average
5 years ago. Average speed 135 miles an hour. It's just, I mean, you'd have a job to do that around Silverstone.
Yeah, you would. You wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't do 135 on a bike around Silverstone, I don't think.
Unbelievable. Anyway, on that bombshell, enjoy your Cracker Barrel, Tiff and Harry, and we'll see you next week.
One final hamburger, I think. Yeah, they were on the plane tonight. Mind you, we've got to watch the NASCAR, of course. We were going to report on NASCAR, but it didn't happen because of rain. So I think we'll be getting it. Well, the Xfinity race is on the telly now. Has it started yet? What's happening, Harry?
Raining.
It's raining again. Maybe it won't start.
Where is it?
They're at, we're on the telly. I don't know where they are. Charlotte. They're at Charlotte. It's almost the home of NASCAR. They didn't run at all yesterday. Now they've done 25 laps of the Xfinity race, and it's raining again. So
you like going to America? Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, I love America. I mean, I can only live here about 2 or 3 weeks, but then I have to have my head scrambled with too many what are you having? Easy over, underside. More questions. More everything goes on and on. But it's a fun place. There's no doubt about it.
Fantastic. Okay, cheers, guys. See you, everybody. Thanks for joining. Cheers.
Cheers all. Bye.